Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad Podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Karla Hildebrand. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Why don't you? Well, first, I guess normally I just have you tell about yourself, but for the listeners, this is going to be a little different. I came across Karla and her story probably not quite a month ago, probably like 3 or 4 weeks
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
Um, her came across her story. My sister actually shared it with me. Some news coverage of Karla and her daughter's story. So I reached out to Karla at that time and wanted to see if she wanted to be on the podcast to share their story, as I feel it's got a pretty good tie into inclusion and disabilities, and I just wanted to get their story out. I also have a connection with Karla. She's lives in Quincy, Illinois, where my mom and her side of the family is from. So that also was something that the reason I wanted to get Karla on is just the connection I have to the city in which the story takes place. So that's a little background for the listeners. Just Karla, if you want to just maybe just tell a little bit about yourself and about
Sure,
the story that I'm talking about.
sure. I'm born and raised in Quincy. I have married my high school sweetheart, have three children. My oldest is 19. We had a middle child that passed away, and then we have Maddie. Maddie's 13.
Okay.
Maddie has dealt with medical issues her entire life. From the minute before she was even born, I was life flighted many times with her just because she had heart issues. And when she was born, after she was born, we immediately knew something was off with her. Um, she just missed milestones, and as she grew, was just things that were off. So we suspected autism. She was diagnosed with autism, has many health diagnoses. And that's kind of what leads into all of this. She started having a lot of muscle weakness, a lot of issues with her muscles early on. We've done a lot of investigation, neurology, genetics, you name it. She does have a mitochondrial disorder that causes her muscles to be weak and her lactic acid to be very high. Um, we started noticing about 2 years ago, we started noticing a lot more issues. She was having trouble swallowing. She was choking on food. Speech was different. Falling. Um, at that time, all of her doctors, of course, they all just start going over and over again and repeating testing and stuff, but they all know that it's mitochondrial disorder. Her doctors said at school, where she goes to school is an old building, it was built in 1933. It is not accessible. Her doctors said they did not want her using the stairs. They're marble stairs. It's a very old building. So we went to the school. We asked for handicapped accessibility. The school does have an elevator, but it does not go to the fifth floor. The fifth floor is where band happens, and she is in band. We were denied handicapped accessibility based on observation. That is actually what the denial said, observation. So because they can see her walk, they don't believe that there's anything wrong with her, is basically what it boiled down to. Even though we had letters from every single one of her specialists who all said, there's something wrong. Like, you can't, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So when they denied it, she had no choice but to crawl. She crawled up the steps and then slid down the steps on her bottom until this school year, when she fell and broke her leg. So we started using her wheelchair. And at that point in time, they put her in a room for class time by herself with no instruction. Sometimes she gets 10 to 15 minutes of class time, but at least once a week, if not more, she gets no instruction whatsoever.
Sure.
Um, we have gone, go ahead.
You're good.
So for the last 2 years, okay, the last 2 years, we have exhausted every avenue. We have went down every rabbit hole we could to try to get help. Everybody says to us, this is wrong, they can't do this. But where we stumbled was that we'd have people to help us, but the school wouldn't respond. So we went to Equipped for Equality. Equipped for Equality, we're like, yes, we're helping you. They assigned us an attorney. The attorney started helping to mediate. Well, then the attorney for the school district failed to respond. So he was like, I can't mediate with only one side. He ultimately said, there's nothing else I can do. If they're not going to respond to an email, there's nothing else I can do.
Right.
In September, it was around September, when she was in her wheelchair at school, they were using a ramp that is not ADA specific, and they dumped her wheelchair with her in it. And that was kind of my stopping point. Like, I was just done. Like, nobody wants to do anything. Like, it was my melting point. So I just started emailing everything I could find. I went down every rabbit hole. I went down, I was desperate. Like, it's to the point where now my daughter's being left out, but she's also at risk of being injured. Like, and it's not okay. So ultimately, the person that really helped us was our state senator. And I connected with her, and she's helped me get in touch with some people who have started the wheels turning to help us. But unfortunately, like, we're still at that point where nobody's doing anything. And in the interim, she's not only missing classes, but she's missing performances. Like, she'd go to a performance, she didn't have the music. They hadn't worked with her on the music. They didn't tell her what the performance outline would even be. So then she's not even sitting with her class. They move her away. And it was time. We started working with an amazing advocate through the Department of Human Rights. She was amazing. She is amazing. And she felt it was time for us to speak out. This was 2 years in the making. We had tried everything, and so that was when I did the speech.
Right.
That was, that was December 22nd. I did the speech, or January 22nd. January 22nd, I did the speech, and it was a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. It was very anxiety to do that. Like, my anxiety was through the roof to do that. But I knew I had to, because nobody was listening. When the state senator tried to reach the school district, they wouldn't respond. They wouldn't call her back. So, like, what is it gonna take? I'm not gonna just stop advocating for my daughter because they don't want to hear it. So it was time to go a little louder. Hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life, but it was time. The response has been crazy. I think I had like 158 inbox messages from parents who are dealing with similar situations at the school, especially within the music program, which is mainly where we're, what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Just not being inclusive, not being, She also doesn't have access to one of the cafeterias. There's 2 cafeterias, the main cafeteria, which is being on the spectrum, having sensory integration disorder, very loud for her. She can't handle being in that cafeteria. The alternate cafeteria, which serves different food, she does not have access to because it's not accessible. So 2 days after we went to the school board, they segregated her further and said they now cannot let her eat with any friends. She used to be able to have a friend or 2 out to eat with her, and no longer is able to do that. So we're not stopping. We're not stopping. Like, we finally have people who are listening and who have seen the mountain of paperwork that we have, and who are like, you're right, this can't happen, And the district wants to hide behind the fact that the school building is 133 years old and they don't have to make the building accessible.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest takeaway is the building doesn't have to, but the program has to.
Right.
And that's what they're willing to do. I mean, and in some ways the building does have to be, but in this specific situation with the specific band where it's at, I'm not saying they have to go build. I mean, the mediator gave them multiple options,
Right.
and they said no to every single one. So we're just not going to take it lying down, and she deserves to be a part of music.
Right. So lots a lot. Thank you for sharing that. I made it through most of your speech. I couldn't watch the whole thing, to be honest with you. It's very, so I have a daughter that has cerebral palsy and epilepsy, uses a wheelchair, been flown in a helicopter multiple times for seizures. I did a TEDx talk 11 years ago now, and the story I shared in that was having to carry her up onto a stage in a theater that wasn't accessible for her. So she was in choir, and it was a lot more, I would say, inclusive than your guys' story, but there was still like times where I just shook my head and like, how can this be happening? I mean, that incident, times when I had to help get her out on stage at a concert when I want to be in the crowd just watching because they don't have paras to get her out there. So I mean, it's crazy how stuff like that still happens. And so how long has she been like in band or played instruments and stuff?
She's been in band since 4th grade.
Okay. And she's in like 7th or 8th now? Is that right?
She's in 8th grade now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So And when does
and some of their options were like, oh well, she can go to orchestra. Well, she doesn't want to do orchestra.
Right.
She wants to do band.
Right.
Like there's a big difference, and the high pitch of it's so hard when people don't understand. We asked them to get training with kids with special needs. We were told no. And I'm like, because they don't understand. Like kids with special needs learn a lot differently, like in some of the behaviors they didn't understand. And I'm like, if you understand the behaviors with autism, it makes things so totally different. Right. One day she told a teacher said, I'm really tired. And she said, you look tired. And the teacher got mad at her. And I'm like, no. She wasn't saying that to be mean. She's black and white. She's just telling you, right. Yes, you're right. You look tired. She wasn't meaning it meanly. So I think like from that standpoint of autism, everybody needs to know, like, it's not what it appears to be. You have to understand the child to understand what they're saying. Like, right. But we were denied special education training for them to be able to teach her and to benefit all of the kids. Like,
right. Has she been on IEP?
The only choice they left us.
Go ahead.
Since kindergarten.
Have you had like any issues with school prior to like this stuff? I mean, has it been smooth sailing till now, or has it kind of always been touch and go? Okay.
It's been a always struggle. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Not so much with everything, just different things like.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, obviously my story was my daughter qualified under lots of categories, and she's in a wheelchair. So I didn't know any better. So we sent her across town to like a segregated program, found out that they were folding towels in like 1st grade. And I was like, hold on a second. Why are we folding towels already? Why are we not in math class and reading class, learning that stuff? So fought for inclusion after that. And I mean, for me, at least, there was I would see a lot of things that I didn't feel were right, but as a parent, we had to choose like which ones you can't like, fight every battle because there's just not enough energy. So, we really fought the inclusion piece, and it sounds to me, you could correct me, but like it finally got to the point where like, okay, we can't do this anymore. This is important enough to me that we need to, spend the energy and, push forward. Is that kind of what it's gotten to?
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And one thing that I challenged the board to was to tell me when the last time they saw a handicapped child in the band program.
Yeah, I saw that.
They can't. You know, I was told the last one was a really long time ago, and they carried the wheelchair up and down the steps.
Nice.
You know, and when they subpoenaed the school records had an email chain from the superintendent that talked about how this has been a problem since 1933. Well, if it's been a problem, why aren't you fixing it?
Right.
Like, and that was one of my biggest arguments. They've just spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on our district on new turf, new lighting for the baseball field, a sporting parking lot, a new front to the board office to make it blend in with the neighborhood. Not even anything educational. But we can't fix this problem. I mean, it's so frustrating to me. So frustrating to me. And then when you get to the high school setting where they play for the basketball games is not accessible. So what kind of message does this send for the young kids who do have handicap issues? Well, why start? Because, you know, you're going to hit a point where you can no longer participate.
Right.
It's maddening to me. Like, it's not just my daughter. It's become more of an issue overall with all kids. Like, how many were denied ahead of her and how many are going to be denied after her? Like, this can't continue to happen.
So I think you said when you were talking, you had like 158 messages in your inbox. Is that from like other parents in Quincy with other issues that they were going through?
Yeah, and honestly, people all over, like alumni that had been part of the program. There was one from a lady in California, how she was just so upset as an alumni that this had happened. Messages from parents that had kids in this class that were so upset that they didn't realize that this was happening. And then they talked to their child and their child was like, yeah, we never see her. You know, it's February. So she's been in school since September and she's been with her class a total of 5 times. 3 of those times were for performances outside of the school day. And 2 of those were actually during the school day when they held it on the accessible stage. It's not right. Like,
no,
she doesn't feel included. Like, you know, and they say that she is getting equal education. How is that equal? How is that equal when she's not allowed to be with her peers? When she's not allowed to be in a group? She's by herself every day.
Well, did I also read that like she's not even getting like taught the songs or having access to the songs to like practice them before performances either? Okay.
She went to the very first performance, which was a big deal because it was like the coming of age where the 8th graders get to go on the football field with the high schoolers.
Okay.
We showed up and she didn't have any of the music. They had sent it via email with a note that they never worked on it with her that day. Performance is at like 6 p.m. They sent it at like noon.
Right.
Well, I'm like, why are you sending it to me? You know, like they never, and then the note said they never had time to work on it with her. So she literally goes to the football game with no music and the teacher says, fake it till you make it. And she was in tears. She was so upset. Like, she just wanted to be able to play. Like, this was such an important moment to be included with the high schoolers, to like have that feeling. And it was just completely ruined because she didn't get the chance. It's just been a lot of that. It's just been, I just feel like this whole year has been 10 times worse than it had been prior. But no communication. Like, no, let's work this out. No, that's why we're to the point we are. Part of the reason, the other reason.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The other part of the reason that actually got me to speak out. So Maddie has just had a lot of stuff with health and surgeries and a lot of issues. So I had wrote to her favorite singer. Her favorite singer's Pink. And Pink was on this 2-year crazy tour. And last July, she wrote back. And I got a random call from her tour manager. that she was sending her a video. So Maddie's birthday is July 8th, and Pink sent her a video for her birthday from Copenhagen, wished her happy birthday, sang happy birthday to her, invited her to a concert. It was the most amazing thing ever. So she got to meet Pink in August. We went to her concert, and Pink is a very civil rights, stand up for what you believe in type of person. She's amazing. And she talked to me about what was happening and gave me a hug and told me to keep fighting for our girl. And honestly, like, her music and her just telling me gave me that extra push I needed to start fighting a little harder because it wasn't right. So yeah, her team has seen the video, and I did thank Pink in that speech because I couldn't have done it like without just the encouragement and being like, you can do this, you know, especially from somebody like her.
That's really awesome of her. I mean, yeah, I don't know a lot about her, but I watched the video that you forwarded to me, and it was very cool for her because she was on stage and she said something about Maddie too, didn't she? Or like, yeah.
Yeah, we met her backstage, and we had a very nice time, and then we did not know what was happening, but then during her concert, she dedicated a song to her and talked about how she's a warrior, and it was absolutely amazing moment. And she shared it on her Instagram page. So then Maddie became like, lots of people were messaging, who's Maddie? And it was an amazing moment. But yeah. You know.
So since
She really showed us how truly inclusive music should be.
Yes.
Music isn't a one size fits all. Like, everyone can benefit from music. Everyone should be entitled to have music. Nobody should be there to be able to say you can't have music simply because you have a physical limitation.
Right. I mean, have you thought about other ways maybe that she can? I mean, she should be able to be with her peers in band and have that experience. But have you thought about maybe is there another way that she can express her music in a more inclusive way than that, or is there other ways she can?
I don't know, like, Quincy is limited when it comes to things for special needs. They're working on it. Like, there's definitely programs out there that really are amazing and wonderful, but as far as music goes,
okay, not really,
unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the questions I ask all my guests is, what is your definition of inclusion? So what would you say your definition of inclusion is?
The freedom to be yourself and be included and do anything that everyone else has the ability to do.
Yeah. How, I mean, you've touched a little bit on it. And I don't really want you to speak maybe from Maddie's perspective, but I mean, as a mom, like how is she handling it? Or like, I mean, how's that part of it? Like seeing her,
she struggles. She definitely struggles. Like, she cries and she doesn't understand why she's being singled out or left out, or, she very much struggles with it. She told her doctor last week she needs help because she's sad when she's supposed to be happy. And he said, why are you sad? And she said, because I feel like I'm a nobody at school. Nobody pays attention to me and I feel like a nobody. As a mom, that's probably the most heartbreaking thing you can ever hear in your entire life.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Since the speech, has there been any movement on changing things, or it sounds like not really a lot, nothing?
None. No emails, no calls, no nothing. Like, they said that they would talk to us over a call. They've not reached out.
Right.
They've not emailed us back. There are things in motion on our end, but not on their end.
So yeah, I guess you kind of touched on it. You had a lawyer, and they were going to try to help mediate, and the school isn't like doing anything. Is there ways to like force them to have to respond to stuff? I mean, I guess I'm not sure the process.
I'm not sure either. Through Equipped for Equality, because he was contractually obligated to mediate with us. We signed the contract. He couldn't mediate any further. So his job was basically done. He's like, I can't mediate if they're not going to, respond. So,
right.
And unfortunately, that's kind of like we've hit like the brick wall every time somebody tries to help us. It's been like, you're wrong. You are totally right. You have a right to be mad about this. You have a right. This is so wrong. We're going to help you. And then they try to talk, but then the district is like, we're just not going to talk to them and just ignore. And I think that's part of the reason. Well, I know that's part of the reason we went more vocal, because when you ignore a state senator, that's kind of a kind of a biggie. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's a problem. You got to fix it.
Right. So next year, does she go to the high school then, or is that how it works down there?
We'll go to the high school next year. Okay. Yeah. Well, she will next year.
So is that building like more accessible besides the band stuff again, or
I believe it is. I don't have. I mean, it is an older building, not as old as the junior high. I don't have much experience in that building. I have a little, but when my son went there, but I was never. I think once you can probably relate to this, but once you like see the problems with accessibility, you see them everywhere. And so like now I'm suddenly like, oh my gosh. So I've not been in that facility when I've had as much knowledge as I do now. And realize that it just makes you look through the world in a different pair of glasses. I'll put it that way.
For sure. No, for sure. Like, my daughter, she's been in a wheelchair for quite a long time. So I mean, everywhere, I see stuff all over the place. I can't not see it now. So it's just everywhere. Like, there's no curb cut there. That sidewalk you can't get across that sidewalk because it's like bowed up or whatever. I mean, and we live in Minnesota, which we haven't had a lot of snow, but like people don't clear the snow off. It's like, there's no way you can get around. It's like, there's just so many, like go to a parking lot. There's no handicap spots. I'm like, there's like 30 spots here. They should have at least one handicap spot somewhere. So it's constant.
It is, and you have to, have the forethought to plan out your steps ahead of time, and it's something that people probably wouldn't ever appreciate. You know what I mean? Like, that you have to literally think and plan before you do anything. And Maddie's not in a wheelchair 100% of the time, but when she is, it's extremely hard to try to figure out: are we going to be able to get her wheelchair through here? Are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? And it's something that I think everybody should have to experience in their life to understand why the laws and why things are in place.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm divorced, and my partner, we've been together like, I think a little over 3 years, and she did not have like the level of exposure to somebody in a wheelchair that she has since knowing me. And she's told me more than once. She's like, I knew there was ADA. I knew there was these laws in place. So I just kind of assumed that everything was, fixed and there wasn't any problems. She's like, I didn't until I was, she was around me and my daughter. She's like, she didn't even realize it. So, I mean, like you're saying, if you're not exposed to it and you've heard that there is a law, I think there is just a sense that, everything is fine. And then once now she doesn't see everything to the level I do, but I mean, she definitely will be out somewhere. She says stuff too. So, I mean, it's one of those things, once you're exposed to it, you realize it, but otherwise you don't. So, I mean, that's why I should.
And I think it's the same thing.
Go ahead.
It's the same thing, even with the IEP process.
True.
And with that whole process, like, you can see it on paper, but when you understand the laws behind it, and you look through it completely different. Like, when you realize sometimes how much is wrong, like you're like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea.
Yeah, there's that part. And then to me too, like you can spend hours, having a meeting, getting the perfect IEP. And then like, if they don't follow it, like, what do you mean? They don't follow it, and then you bring it up and like, hey, okay, we should. Okay, what are you going to do? And then it's like you're like, okay, what's the point of having it if we're not going to follow it? And I can't really do anything about it. It's just, it's frustrating.
I'm sitting at the Ronald McDonald House, as you know, we're about 2 hours from home. My daughter's having some medical stuff this week, and I spent most of my day on the computer emailing the teachers because they sent this whole load of homework, but I would say 90% of it wasn't correct because they didn't apply her IEP accommodations. So I'm like, we went through 3 hours of meltdowns and panic attacks because the homework wasn't the way it was supposed to be, and I'm like, come on, I asked for this a month ago.
Right.
So it's I get that.
It's frustrating. So you said there are some things in the works. You don't have to share them, but is there anything you can share about what like next steps are, or anything you guys might be planning to try to get the story out more, or anything? Or
there are just things in the works, and that's all I can really say at this moment in time. Cool. But I think it's a very important step that's happening, that will be happening.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to share that with you once the results come through with that.
Sure.
Which there will be results. There definitely will be results from that.
Another question I ask all my guests is just, what is one tip you can share to help the listeners be more inclusive today? So just something simple anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Trying to understand, seek first to understand. That's like one of my biggest things. Seek first to understand, understand where somebody who's not included is coming from to try to include them.
Right. Yeah, I like that. So she has an older brother. Is that what you said?
She does. Yeah. Who's a music ed major.
Oh my gosh. That's ironic. Wow.
He's definitely learning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what does he think about all of it?
I won't speak for him, but he is definitely as frustrated as we are. Yes. And it's been amazing, the support from his friends and classmates, awesome. What they've done. And he even has a classmate that's volunteered to give her private lessons, who understands what she's going through. And they've been amazing. And there's hope for this next generation of teachers, music teachers coming, because this group of kids get it. They get it.
Yeah. It sounds like as bad of a situation as there have been some, rays of sunshine through the clouds and stuff. Pink and, other people stepping up and wanting to help. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. There really has been. A lot of people just don't understand, how can this happen? And we're with them. We're with them. It's 2025. Yeah. Why is this happening?
For sure. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I ask you the last question?
Sure. I would just say, my biggest piece of advice for any parent going through the IEP process, any parent having issues, is not to give up. Right. You may get to those stumbling blocks like we have, where people, yes, it's wrong, but we don't know how else to get through. Don't stop. Keep going. I spent one whole weekend emailing thousands of people for help. One responded back, but it was the one that mattered the most. And she has been our champion. So just don't give up. And rely on advocates, because, oh my gosh, we have 2 advocates who I could not have gotten through this without them.
Yeah. Ready for the last question?
Yeah.
Do you like Spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
I do like Spam.
You do? So I live in Austin, Minnesota, where the Spam Museum's located, and they make spam. So I ask all my guests if they like spam. Just kind of a fun question.
Yeah, I do like spam.
Yeah. So if you ever want to visit the Spam Museum, you got to come visit me, and we can go to the Spam Museum.
All right.
And it's about, let me see. Well, growing up, so my mom is from there, like I said. So we would drive down there in the summer and every Christmas. And, when I was a kid, it took a long time because they had all 2 lanes. So now there's 4 lanes, and it's like 5-6 hours you can make it. So it's a lot quicker now. But you miss the small towns, which is kind of fun to go through the small towns and see stuff. Now you just go around stuff. So
yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show and share your story with my listeners. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Aaron, for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you to those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.